Hello and welcome to this modified Stronglifts 5x5 workout series. As a recap, I've done a modified 5-3-1 workout series where we went through 5 modified 5-3-1 workouts. Now we look at another very popular strength training program. That's the Stronglift 5x5. And here I've prepared 7 modified Stronglift 5x5 workouts for you. But before we get started, again, what is my goal, not the training goal, what is my goal? Again, it's about a modified program, not a regurgitated program. Yeah, so that's why you see big, fat, modified font on the workout. So you'll also get a resource list, which I have used to bring all the information together and to come up with this workout series. Modified actually means how would I do it? It's a bit of a balancing act between how it is done and how I would do it, and not throwing everything around and do it completely like I would want to. But anyway, I wanted to apply my thought process to this Stronglift 5x5 workout. So let's get started. What is the Stronglift 5x5? You can go to the website, you can download their training programs, and I think there's also an app and lots of things. So it's another very popular strength training program. It's from Mehdi Hadim. You can find more information on the website. Someone who thought of, let me structure all the information into a concise, comprehensive program, and I like the program, so check it out. The origins can be found in Reg Park, one of the early bodybuilders, and Bill Starr. Bill Starr I have spoken about before, someone who influenced me quite a lot with his very logical common sense approach, and his book The Strongest Shall Survive, which is now probably 6-7 decades old. Anyway, so Stronglift 5x5, what is it about? Its training goal is to build strength, and secondary you gain some muscle mass. Yeah, so the training variables in the original Stronglift 5x5, it's 60% of the 1RM for beginners and 70-80 for experienced lifters. The core concept is progressive overload. So if you don't know what progressive overload is, you can also feel free to check out my series on training principles, where there's one lecture on progressive overload. So you start with 60% as a beginner, or 70-80 as an experienced lifter, yeah? And then you work your way up. Normally it's done in increments of 2.5 to 5 pounds each week. It is a set 5x5 structure. So you use a set weight. Once you can do 5 sets of 5 repetitions, you progress. If you fail, you repeat the same weight. If you fail 3 times, you reduce the weight by 10% and start all over. So there we have it, 60% for beginners, 70-80 for experienced lifters. The rep range is pretty simple, it's 5 reps. Training exertion, moderate to maximum, and the effort is a maximum or repeated effort. You can discuss whether 5 repetitions is a maximum effort, and 60% certainly is not a maximum effort, neither is 70-80. So it's probably more a repeated effort. The exercises, it's based on a few exercises. The squat is performed in every workout. The bench press, the deadlift, the overhead press, and the barbell row. Yeah, so pretty simple. Lower body push, upper body push, lower body pull, upper body push, upper body row. Yeah, so we have covered everything. In the original workout, workout A is squat, bench, and row. Workout B is squat, overhead press, and deadlift. There are also some assistant exercises which they classify by muscle groups. Yeah, as you know, I'm not a big fan of this muscle group classification, only if you're interested in muscular hypertrophy. Anyway, they look at the upper chest, the biceps, triceps, core, lower back, and shoulder health. And then they have the dumbbell incline press for the chest, the biceps, they do pull-ups and barbell curls, triceps, dips and skull crusher. As you know, I named the skull crusher the French press, semantics. Core, sit-ups, hanging leg raises, lower back extensions, and then the shoulder health face pulls. If you can't perform any of the exercises, the original program 5x5 Stronglifts gives you alternative exercises. Yeah, so instead of barbell squats, you could do goblet squats. Instead of barbell bench press, you can dumbbell press. Instead of the overhead press, you can do the seated dumbbell press. The one-arm row instead of the barbell rows, and the rack pulls instead of the deadlift. It moves from heavier compound to lighter assistance. The training variables, the classical Stronglift 5x5 is 3 days a week. The Ultra, which is more for experienced lifters, is 4 days a week. It's a station training, which includes some complexes, mainly station training. The classic Stronglifts, 3 days a week, is a full body. And the Ultra, the 4 days a week, is an upper-lower split. So now the question stands out, what is going to be modified? What will I change? I would change, not would, I will. I do change the exercise selection slightly. I mainly stick to the exercise because I think the exercises are a good choice. The training intensity, because it's normally you start with a weight, you perform your 5 sets of 5. If it goes well at good technique, you increase the weight, which I think is a very good approach to do things. But also there is, in my opinion, a bit of a bottleneck, which is if you look at such a program, if I would stick to the way it is outlined and I start with 60% of the 1RM for 5 reps, that would be an RPE of 4, which is quite low. Yeah, and then imagine I would progress this over 5 sessions. Yeah, so that would go from 60 to 62 to 65 to 67.5 to 70. We would work with an RPE of 4 to 5, which I think even for a beginner is quite low, given the technique is good. I mean, if the technique is not sufficient, we don't have to talk about training intensities or anything. It's always a given that the moment we start putting training intensities down, that the technique is consolidated and solid. So, training volume on the deadlift, they usually work with lower volumes, meaning 1 set of 5 and then a bit of a higher intensity. I'll change that as well in my approach. The organization, I want to include some complexes into the program. And last but certainly not least, there will be a bit of a change in training frequency, because sometimes it makes sense to have a 2-week training program, and you can also think of a 5-week training program for more advanced athletes. Before we close, there is the resource list which you can download, so you can see it's not what I came up with in my head. I used quite a bit of information to get this workout series together and then applied my thought process. So, what are the next steps? You stay tuned for the workouts, 7 workouts, and you like and subscribe. And you can grab all previous workouts here. You can watch the previous workout, and if you haven't subscribed, you can do it. I'll see you next week when we start with the first modified Stronglift 5x5 workout.